Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to tonight's Let's Talk primary session. It's so amazing to see so many parents and carers here, so thank you all so much for giving up an hour and a half of your evening to come along. We're sure that you'll find tonight's session helpful. My name is Chloe Pope and I'm from the Safety and Resilience Consultancy, and with my colleague Emma Stevens, we'll be facilitating tonight's session. Our Safety and Resilience Consultancy is a partnership set up to support you with the challenges of looking after your children in this ever-changing landscape. With this amount of people on the Teams platform, it can make the IT a little bit temperamental. So you'll see that your cameras are off and your mics are muted. So this does also mean that unfortunately, Emma and I cannot respond to raised hands during tonight's session. But the chat bar is there and it's open, so please do put any comments or questions in. This is a really great way for you to support each other. If you've used a service that you think might help someone else, please do share this information. However, we all know that every family is different, so just because something worked for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you, and vice versa. Also, we are very aware that services are very stretched and that you may not always have had the response and support that you needed at the time. However, please do try and keep things positive. We want this to be a safe, caring space for you to support each other with other signposting and any tips and strategies as much as you can. For Emma and I, sometimes it can be difficult to present tonight's session and give appropriate answers. There may be a question that needs a little bit more thought rather than that quick public reply. If that is the case, please be assured that we won't be ignoring your question and we will respond to you by email. Please do be respectful of each other, and for confidentiality reasons, please do not give any names or identifying features of children or young people, even if they are your own. This session tonight will be recorded, but your names and comments in the chat bar will not be visible to anyone watching the recording back. And finally, our toolkit that accompanies these sessions will be shared with you if it hasn't already been via email. We have run these sessions previously for parents and carers of teenagers and for our nearly teenagers, but this is the first of our series for your little ones. Some of the content we will share tonight may be difficult for you to hear. We can't apologise for this, as it is important that you know what your children and young people are facing. But one positive of being at home and listening remotely on your sofa is that you can mute us, you can take a break, and when you return, we may have moved on. This is a really great way of you looking after yourselves. Being responsible for growing humans is hard work, and to do a good job of this, you need to look after yourselves. And one very last housekeeping comment, we really do encourage you to share and utilise what you hear over the next couple of hours with your children. But a lot of the content you will need to think about before you share. So tonight is really not suitable for your children to listen to. So please sit somewhere that they can't hear or pop some headphones in. These sessions are not about telling you how to be the perfect parent. In fact, we all know that that person doesn't actually exist. But it's just to make you aware of some of the risks and issues that you may come up against. As professionals, Emma and I go on lots of training and lots of awareness events, but we're always very aware that the people who support children the most, you as parents and carers, are often not given this information. You may be sitting here tonight looking at the agenda and feeling that a lot of tonight's content doesn't apply to you yet, or doesn't apply to your family yet, but we cannot stress enough around how these sessions are about you having information and knowledge to protect your family. You need to be prepared for the dangers in our communities that might be coming your way. We all know that prevention is better than cure. And if you were here with us last week, you will know that we looked at physical and brain development, some community risks, the online world, and worries and anxieties that our 5 to 9-year-olds may have. Tonight, we'll be thinking about relationships, we'll be thinking about healthy language and development, and we'll be thinking about gender stereotypes before finishing on emotional well-being. So let's get into it. So we wanted to start tonight by thinking about relationships, which can feel a little bit strange when we're talking about our 5 to 9-year-olds. But think about it, their life is hopefully surrounded by lots of different types of relationships. So the relationship that they have with you, for example, the relationship they have with other family members, their school teacher, their friends, the list really does go on. All of these relationships will be different. They'll all have different expectations and ways to behave within them. Children are constantly learning about relationships, and these current relationships will provide them with a framework of what to expect and how to behave within future romantic relationships. Not only this, but Emma spoke to us last week about role modelling. So children will also be learning about relationships from what they see, which leads us on to how we can appropriately open these discussions with our children about relationships. So firstly, we believe that children are absolutely never too young to have appropriate discussions about relationships. But do try and not make this too forced or too intense. We don't need to be having one big chat. It's important that that conversation about relationships is ongoing and that it's relaxed. And that's because relationships are complex and ever changing. And so it's important that our children are informed. So think about a good time to start that conversation, potentially when there aren't any other people around that might leave your child feeling a little bit embarrassed. So thinking about older siblings being around, for example. You might want to start the conversation in a really neutral place where they don't necessarily need to look at you in the eyes. So thinking about car journeys or whilst you're cooking or maybe watching TV together. And speaking of TV really is an excellent starting point opening up these discussions. You could ask your child what they think about the relationship between the cartoon characters that they enjoy watching on TV, starting simple with questions like, do you think they love each other? And how do you know that? Of course, they might not be quite sure of how to answer. So answer your own questions here. You could say something like, well, I think that they love each other because when they're together, they're often laughing and they give each other hugs. By doing this, you're starting to link love with those positive behaviours and helping your little person with understanding those very basic aspects of a positive, healthy relationships. After starting in a really neutral place, like a TV show or maybe a video clip, you could start talking to them about the relationships that they have. Ask about someone that they love, what they love about them, and what that person might love about them too. Aside from romantic relationships, another relationship type it's important that children learn about at a young age is friendships. Until starting primary school, yes, they may have had friends that they played alongside in nursery or preschool. But during the ages of between 5 and 9 years old is where those friendships really become that bit more established. They might have a best friend now, for example. They might be asking to bring friends back home from school for dinner. Or they might really be struggling to make friends. As I said, they're still learning about friendships and navigating this new world. So how can we support our young people in making and maintaining positive friendships? Well, firstly, be supportive of their new friends, as long as they're positive friendships, of course. Making friends is really, really hard, and it's lovely that someone wants to be friends with your child. That must really show all of those lovely qualities that you've nurtured in them. So encourage them to invite their friends over or go out with them. That can be a real support for that blossoming friendship. But also do make sure to give them a little bit of space. They're starting to learn about independence now, and while they may still need your help, do try and observe from a distance when they have a friend over or they're playing together, making sure that the play is safe and amicable, but without feeling that kind of overbearing feeling. Be non-judgmental, so try not to pass comment on their friends, unless of course you're very worried about the friendship. So for example, maybe their new friend isn't a positive influence on them. Making negative comments about their friends is never likely to have a positive outcome, and it could distort their thinking about their friends or could result in them shutting down and not being open with you in the future if they needed to be. Make sure to be that secure base. So if anything does go wrong, make sure that they know that they can come to you. Whether that's to do with friendship squabbles to something more serious like bullying, they still need you. Friendships require work, something that we might take for granted now that we're adults and we've navigated this, but they do. There's likely to be wobbles in their friendships. There's likely to be arguments and tears. This doesn't necessarily mean that their friends are bad people, just that they're also learning to navigate childhood and making new friends. And role model, it takes a lot of skills and hard work to maintain friendships. So show them how you're a good friend and how to be a good friend. Role model nurturing your own relationship, spending time with friends, being supportive and forgiving where appropriate. So how do we move from talking to children about friendships and relationships to having age-appropriate discussions about sex? The way we talk about sex is going to be very different in how we talk about it to a 5-year-old compared to a 9-year-old. However, again, for all ages, think about those everyday situations where the topic might naturally come up, like seeing a pregnant woman, for example. Very gentle discussions with younger children about the baby being in her belly is a start to those more explicit conversations that might happen later down the line. When speaking with a 7, 8 or 9-year-old, for example, there may be more of a focus on puberty and the changes that they might already be experiencing or soon to experience. You might want to talk to your child about how they might soon start to see a steady increase in large muscle development and weight gain, and therefore an increase in strength. You're going to be seeing growth spurts, and this generally happens earlier for girls, but it lasts longer for boys who often end up taller. Body proportions change, so females tend to widen at the hips and boys across the chest and shoulders. Up until now, both sexes have looked similar, but this may soon change. They may complain of joint pain, and these growing pains are real. Things are happening really quickly in their bodies. You might want to warn them of some of the things that they might not like so much, like the fact that their hair is going to start to grow. Underarm hair will go alongside body odour, and that awareness that they might want to start using deodorant on a regular basis as they get older. Skin becomes oilier and spots might start to develop. For some, this may be next to nothing, and for others, it could be an experience of really bad acne. Can you imagine or remember how scary this can seem? Their bodies really do change so quickly, and they're expected to just accept it, adapt with it, and just get on with it. It's part of life. Well, yes, it is a part of life. But sometimes as adults, we struggle with things that are part of life, and hopefully we know where to ask for help and support. So it's important that children and young people are able to air their worries and concerns and get the help and support they need, which is where you come in. Although your children might not be quite ready for those more to the point conversations about sex just yet, they will be ready for discussions about consent. Children need to know about consent in order to help keep themselves safe. So talking about consent now is as important as it will be when they turn 16. So let's watch a very short clip now about consent, which you could show to your children as a starting point in helping them to understand what consent is.
Consent for kids. This is you. Okay, it doesn't look exactly like you, but let's say it's you. This is your body, and you get to decide what you do with your body. No one else is entitled to tell you what to do with your body. Not your friends, not strangers, not adults you know. No one is entitled to decide what you do with your body, except you. That's called bodily autonomy, by the way. And that's what consent is all about. Everyone is different. Some people love to hug, and some people hate hugs. And each person gets to decide what they're comfortable with. Can a hug-loving person just start hugging someone at random? Nope. They need consent. How do people know if they have consent? They ask. Would you like a hug?
Yes, I would. Can I hold your hand?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
If a person doesn't say yes,
Can I hug you?
then they haven't given their consent. It's really pretty simple. Ask for consent, listen to the answer. By the way, if a person bribes someone or threatens someone to say yes, that's not consent. Sometimes adults will try to tell a kid what to do with their body.
Go kiss Aunt Doris goodbye.
But the kid still gets to decide. No thanks, that makes me uncomfortable. I'll just wave goodbye. Some things kids can't consent to. They can't enter into legal contracts. They can't vote. And they can't consent to sexual stuff. 'Cause they're kids. So if an adult does something that kids can't consent to, that's not okay. The adult is wrong, and it's not the kid's fault. And that's when it's most important to tell a trusted adult, like a teacher. Why? Because it's your body. And no one else is entitled to tell you what to do with it. Practice consent.
Hi everybody, I'm just going to try and stop this now before it plays again. Hi everybody, welcome. So I love some of these consent videos. You can find them all on YouTube for all different age groups. If you've got older children or teenagers in your house, the cup of tea consent one is a really good one to search for as well. If you just type cup of tea into YouTube, it will come up. If you put cup of tea clean, you'll get the one without the swearing in, but that's a really good one to watch with your older children as well. So there are some common examples on your screen now of language that I'm sure we've all used before. Please don't feel guilty about using this type of language on the left-hand side of the table, because it's really common that we say these things to try and encourage our children to show affection to people that love them. However, just notice that all of the phrases on the right-hand side have got a question mark after them. This is because it gives your child an option and the right to say no, just that opportunity to be able to say no to something. Of course, you might well run the risk of upsetting a family member if your child says no, such as, do you want to give a hug or a kiss to Auntie Sarah, and your child says no. However, teaching children about consent is far more important than briefly upsetting Auntie Sarah. We'd also suggest other ways that they could show affection if they want to. If you think about high fives or waves or blowing kisses or thumbs up, they're all still positive forms of showing love, but it does give the message that if they don't want to kiss or cuddle someone, that's okay, and they can show their love in other ways. It isn't about necessarily discouraging your children from kissing and cuddling, but it's giving them the control over this, that they only have to do that when they want to. And it's that very start of learning about consent and having their own voice listened to and respected, and how very important this is. So I'm sure that a lot of you here tonight will have heard about the PANTS campaign from the NSPCC. PANTS is taught in some primary schools, so it's likely that some of your children might already be aware of this. And PANTS stands for P, privates are privates. A, always remember that your body belongs to you. N, for no means no. T, for talk about secrets that upset you. And S, for speak up, someone can help you. So I'm just going to show you now one of the quick fun PANTS videos, which has been made into this really nice, engaging song for children. Again, another video that you could share with your child to reinforce that their body belongs to them and only them.
This is Pantosaurus. He's going to help us with our song about pants.
Pantosaurus,
What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts.
Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. Pantosaurus likes to wear his pants. He wears them all day long. They cover up his private parts, and that's what makes him strong. If someone asks to see or tries to touch him underneath them, he tells them no, then tells someone he trusts and likes to speak to. What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only If someone asks to see or tries to touch under your pants and says to keep it secret, then you must tell them no. Then go and find someone you trust and tell them straight away. They'll say, well done for speaking out and make everything okay. What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. Sing along, everybody, it's your turn. What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. If someone asks to see, just tell them no.
I'm really sorry if you go to bed tonight having that song in your head. It's quite a catchy one, isn't it? But it is a really good fun video to engage children and get across that really important message. Good time to talk back to your children about that pants rule. Again, when your child's relaxed, when maybe there's nothing else going on and you can spend a bit of time with them. Things like when you're going swimming, it's a good time to have these discussions, about why you're covering up to go in the swimming pool, and what's covered by their swimwear is private, just to them. So under this kind of massive umbrella of childhood development, obviously falls sexual development. And it's important to understand what sexual development in a healthy way looks like in children as they grow, just so that we can be mindful of any warning signs that there may be something else going on for a child. As well as their biology, such as hormonal changes, children's sexual development really is shaped by their environment, their experiences, and what they see. We also know that children are likely to come across sexual images and videos now at a much younger age than you as their parents would have done. And this is through films, music videos, or online pornography. We talked a lot about it last week, that the average age now for a child viewing their first pornography is years younger than it was. We're looking at, an average of 9 to 11 have been their first time that they're exposed to online pornography. So every child is different and maybe become interested in relationships, sex and sexuality at slightly different ages. As children get older, the way they express their sexual feelings obviously changes. So it's natural for our teenagers to show interest in sex and relationships, and it's natural for our children to be curious about the changes that are going to happen to them during puberty. Many sexual behaviours that children show as they grow up are normal and healthy, as long as they're not causing harm to others or to the children themselves. So Brooke are a sexual health charity, and they outline several developmentally appropriate sexual behaviours in children 5 to 9. So things that you might find in 5 to 9-year-olds that might initially alarm you, that are perfectly normal in their development. So things like feeling and touching their own genitals, curiosity about other children's genitals, curiosity about sex and relationships. So, for example, they might start to ask questions about the differences between boys and girls. And like Chloe said, if they see somebody pregnant, they might ask how that baby got into somebody's tummy, how sex happens. And they might start to ask questions about same-sex relationships as well. You will find at this age that they start having more of a sense of privacy about their bodies. And they might start telling stories or asking questions and using slang words for parts of their body. So it is very normal and developmentally appropriate for your children to be curious about sex and relationships. But when talking about their private parts, do try and use the correct biological terms. This is so they can be very clear and factually accurate about their own bodies. We, of course, really hope that they never need to make any kind of disclosure to you, but if they do, or a part of their body was sore, for example, by using the correct terms, everybody is clear on what they're talking about. But if you do have concerns that your child is showing sexual behaviours that aren't developmentally appropriate, please do seek help by either speaking to their school, preschool, or speaking to your GP. Chloe.
Thank you, Emma. So linking on with development, we want to touch upon body image. When we talk about body image, we're referring to the way that we think and the way that we feel about ourselves physically and how we believe that other people may see us. And research has shown us that attitudes about body shape and size often starts as early as 4 years old. These attitudes then continue to develop throughout primary school, and by the age of 11 years old, researchers found that 79% of 11-year-olds said that how they look is important to them. Body image is absolutely not just about weight. It can be about things such as our children comparing how they look with their friends. It could be our children struggling to love and accept their body. It could be feeling as though their body shape is not represented in the media. It could be hiding their body because of feelings of shame. It could be feeling misunderstood about their body when people make assumptions about things like why they might need a wheelchair, for example. It could be birthmarks or surgery scars. These thoughts that children have about how they look or feel about their bodies are often influenced by the things that are going on around them. So this could be media, such as adverts on TV. It could be TV shows themselves or movies, for example. It could be their toys. Barbies are now becoming much more inclusive, thankfully, but a lot of them still do adhere to that stereotypical perfect body type. Thinking about things like adverts on the TV or what toys other family members buy them are largely out of our control. Of course they are. But one thing that we can control is how we talk about ourselves, how we talk about other people, and most importantly, how we talk about them. So talk to them and encourage them to focus on what they like about themselves and what good things that their body can do, not just about how they look. So help them to see all those good parts and point out the things that you love about them. These can be simple things like being funny, being a good friend, or being creative. If they're old enough to read, you could try writing the things down together as a list, and they can keep that list for days that they're struggling as a reminder of all the good things that they like about themselves and what you like about them. And think about how you interact with yourself in the mirror. So try and avoid making those negative comments that we may all naturally think about when we look in the mirror. Things like, oh, I look tired, or I look fat in this. Instead, try and role model positive language when looking in the mirror. Things like, I'm so thankful for my body because it made you, or I love this new outfit on me. It may seem a little cringe, of course it might, but it really could be so important in shaping your little person's idea of what looking in the mirror involves. And finally, think about how you talk about other people in front of them. Someone might have upset you, and that's absolutely okay. But when discussing this person at home, really try not to mention the way they look in a negative way. And if we are discussing the way people look at home, do try and always keep this positive. Children are little sponges, aren't they? They're always learning from us, and we may not get it right all of the time, and that's absolutely okay. But how we discuss bodies and appearance now will go on to impact how our children view themselves and how children view themselves and other people going forward, potentially even into adulthood. Another area of your child's life that is highly influenced at this age is their viewpoints on the different sexes and responsibilities that these may hold. This can also be referred to as gender or sex stereotypes. So a gender stereotype can be defined as a generalised view about the characteristics or the roles that should be possessed or performed by women or by men. Gender stereotypes can be harmful as they could limit a person's identity, such as choices they make about their life, like their career, their hobbies, or their interests. Gender stereotypes are heavily ingrained in society after many years of being reinforced, so they will not be changed overnight. In fact, research has even shown us that people will treat a baby bump differently if they know that it's a boy compared to a girl. People tend to be rougher with a boy bump and more gentle with a girl bump. This stuff is so unconscious, and like I said before, it's developed over years and years. However, having conversations with your young person about their ideas about gender can be a powerful tool in starting to motivate change. There are some statements that could be used as a conversation starter with your young person to generate that discussion about gender stereotypes on your screen. However, make sure to gently challenge their ideas if they do agree with any of these statements by asking them why that is. Remind them that regardless of their gender, they can be interested in whatever they want to be, which includes hobbies and future career possibilities. So here's a quick video now to think about how else we can positively influence our children's ideas on gender stereotypes. It is a little bit American, but it is thought-provoking.
My boys are growing up in a world where I don't think they've ever questioned whether or not a woman could be a doctor or whether or not a man could be a dancer. They're not assigning roles to gender because that's their reality. But unfortunately, outdated stereotypes are still very much alive today. So we as parents need to be raising kids that are aware and mindful that just because they are not hearing these sort of things on a regular basis, that they are very real. One day when my boys were younger, we went to a popular fast food restaurant, and the person working the drive-thru asks me, "Is that for a boy or is it for a girl?" We were quiet in the car, and my boys are like, "Why does that matter?" So we get to the window and they give us these kid meals, and it turns out the reason that they were asking is because there are two very specific toy options, one of which is for boys, one of which is for girls. And my boys did not want that toy that was for the boy. We had to park the car and go inside to make them give me the toy for a girl. These conversations are important because what they see from me and from their mother and from society, that is going to shape their view of gender roles. In our home, I take on a lot of responsibilities that previous generations would have scoffed at. The idea of a man doing laundry and dropping off the kids at practice and going on field trips and changing diapers. And conversely, my wife, she'll fix the dryer. She'll put in a ceiling fan. Frankly, she's better at that than I am, so why wouldn't she do that? For our boys to grow up seeing that in action and know that it's not staged, that it's our reality, that's going to open them up to so many other possibilities. I'm not saying, oh, you can't ever talk to your girls about bunnies if they love bunnies. You can only talk to them about science. Meet them where they are, you know, and same with boys. By no means do I want to imply that it's wrong for kids to embrace things that they enjoy just because it falls on one side or the other. Just that it shouldn't be mandated by us. Kids can be anything. Girls can be strong, boys can be strong. Girls can be sensitive, boys can be sensitive, and everybody loves glitter. To see kids grow up embracing that, it makes it for such a brighter future, a healthier environment for everyone.
Okay, so linking on with gender stereotypes is the massive subject of toxic masculinity. So toxic masculinity is an attitude or a set of social guidelines stereotypically associated with manliness that often have a negative impact on men and boys, women and girls, and society in general. Toxic masculinity involves pressures for men and boys to behave in a certain way, and it's likely that this affects all boys and men in some fashion. This idea that men need to act tough and avoid showing all emotions can be harmful to their mental health and can have serious consequences for everyone. So think about those phrases that we saw a couple of slides ago and the ones on your screen now. Phrases like man up or grow some balls or you're crying like a girl. Toxic masculinity isn't just about behaving like a man. Instead, it involves the extreme pressure some young people may feel to act in a certain way that is actually incredibly harmful. Toxic masculinity really glorifies unhealthy habits. It's the notion that self-care is for girls and boys should treat their bodies like machines by skimping on sleep, working out even when they're injured, and pushing themselves to those real physical limits. Things like getting up if you're knocked down in a sports game and not complaining if someone hurts you. In addition to pushing themselves hard physically, toxic masculinity discourages boys from expressing their emotions and ever showing anything that could be seen as a weakness. Although we may see this more in teenage boys, even very subtle messaging directed towards young boys can result in them learning to suppress their feelings, and this can lead to them not making the same close friendships that we often see in girls of this age, and having them leading on to some of those emotional effects that we're going to look at next. It may also stop them from asking for help and impacts on those large figures that we really sadly see around suicide in boys and men. When we talked about this in the teenage session, we had some feedback that people thought we were somehow blaming boys for this situation. Actually, it's the opposite. We feel that young boys are the victims of toxic masculinity, and that as parents and carers, we are in the front line of trying to change this. So think about the language that you may use with your little boy on a day-to-day basis. Do try and use the same or at least similar language that you would with a little girl. It's absolutely okay for boys to be hurt. It's okay for boys to be upset. It's great for them to be loving, to be caring, and to be sensitive. All of those traits are really what make us human and are inbuilt aspects for our very existence in order to help us to survive. So last week and tonight, we've discussed several challenges that your children may be navigating or may navigate at some point throughout their childhood. These challenges may, of course, have an impact on your child's emotional well-being. So talking about emotional well-being and mental health at this young age can, of course, feel a little bit intimidating, as we don't want to leave them feeling scared or maybe overthinking how they're feeling and how their emotions affect them. But here's a nice simple clip that you might want to show them to introduce them to this topic around emotions and emotional well-being.
What is mental health? It is how we think, feel, and behave. Everyone has mental health. It is just as important as physical health. It's how we feel about ourselves and others. It's how we relate to others. It's how we cope with life's ups and downs and all of our emotions. So, just to recap, mental health is how we think, feel, behave, how we feel about ourselves and others, how we relate to others, how we cope in ups and downs, and all of our emotions. Our mental health is super important.
So children aged between 5 and 9 years old are now really starting to learn about emotions, what they are, and how they might be able to regulate them. It's really unlikely that your child at this age will consistently be able to tell you how they're feeling, and they are unlikely to always have the words for this, which is often referred to as emotional vocabulary or emotional literacy. Emotions are very confusing. For example, if I said to you now that I felt butterflies in my tummy and my hands were shaking, how might you think I'm feeling? I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. How might I be feeling with butterflies in my tummy and shaky hands? So it's likely that you've all come up with quite different emotion words in your head right now. I could be nervous, I could be anxious, I could be worried, I could even be excited, and I could be many more emotions. In fact, I could be all of them at the same time. I've just listed 4 different emotions there: nerves, anxious, worried, excited. So 4 different emotions with a crossover of physical symptoms. It's taken all of us here tonight years and years to understand how we're feeling. In fact, a lot of us are likely to still be learning. And like I said, on top of emotions being confusing, we could also be feeling several at once. So think starting a new job, for example. If we're starting a new job, we might be feeling nervous, but we might be excited. But we might also be quite sad to leave our old job, yet happy to start afresh. Children also feel several emotions at once. Think of that first day at primary school. They were likely to be feeling all sorts of emotions then, even though they might not have told you or even really shown it. So let's help our children to unpick their feelings and emotions to support them to firstly understand them more and then eventually learn how to manage these. Let's have those open conversations about emotions. So where do they feel emotions in their body? How do they know they are feeling a certain way? And what can they do to help themselves feel good? But do be prepared here to talk about your emotions too. Role model to them by talking about how you feel and how you know you feel this way. So saying something like, I'm feeling happy today because we're going to the Christmas market together and I really enjoy spending time with you. It's really basic, but again, you're linking that emotion of happiness to why you feel that way. You could also extend this to talking about physical sensations of your emotion. So I know I'm happy because I'm smiling and I have a warm feeling in my tummy. Also, don't be too worried about talking about other emotions such as sadness, frustration, or worry. These emotions are very natural and important for our functioning as a human being. So it's important that we don't ignore them. And that's because children really do need to learn about these emotions too. But when discussing them, so for example, I'm a little worried about my first day in my new job. Then go on to show them how you help yourself feel better. Tell them that you're going out for a walk because it helps you to feel calm, or that you're having a chilled night in front of the TV because you're tired after learning lots on your first day in your new job. Obviously here, we're not expecting you to burden them with those real serious adult worries that they don't need to be worrying about. But instead, we're talking about those day-to-day emotions that we all likely feel and how you can manage those. And that can be so beneficial to help our young children to learn about emotions. And when exploring their emotions with them and asking them the questions that are on your screen now, be prepared that, of course, they might not know how to answer them, and that's totally okay. As I said, they're very much at that start of learning about their emotions. So help them to understand their emotions better. How can you read their emotions from their behaviour? Tell them what you've noticed, for example, that they seem quiet or that they're sleeping more, or when they spend time with a certain friend, they seem more smiley. Then explore with them why that may be, what emotions they might be feeling at that time, and how they know that they feel like this. So another quick clip for you now, a nice one to potentially show your children if you think they're at that appropriate developmental age to understand it. If not, it helps us to think about ways that we can talk to our children about emotional well-being.
This film is about mental health, talking about it and listening to others.
Mental health is about our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. Everybody knows how to look after physical health, but looking after our mental health is just as important because you can't see it, you need to talk about it.
Good morning, Afia.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Kai.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Sid.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Sophie.
Good morning, Miss.
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Miss.
This film is all about Jay and us. We're her friends. We're all 10 or 11 years old, all in the same school, live in the same area, but we're all very different to each other.
We all have different feelings every day. They come and go.
You can feel excited,
Silly, angry, nervous, grumpy, confused. lonely, happy, confident.
These are small feelings that we all have every day. What can we do when small feelings are bothering us?
I like KFC, or I like going in the bath. I would probably write it down. You'll feel it's out of you and on the paper. I usually read a book, so I can just escape into the book and then my worries are behind me. When I feel stressed, I usually just turn the shower on and sing in the shower. Just like sit down and play on my favourite video game, really. You could count until you don't feel stressed.
Sometimes we can have big feelings and they don't go away. Big feelings can affect our mental health.
Big feelings can stop us getting on with our lives. They can change how well we feel, how we behave, how we see the world, and how we get on with other people.
Some of Jay's feelings stayed too long and they got too big for her to manage on her own.
What's wrong with Jay? She's usually mature and good at getting her work done.
How are big feelings affecting Jay?
Am I in a jungle? Am I in the sea? My head is going crazy. Will you come and save me?
My tummy hurts. I can't get to sleep at night. I can't concentrate at school. It feels like I have a volcano inside of me getting hotter and hotter.
Sometimes it might help to talk to someone about our feelings, but it can be hard to find the right person.
Do you think your mum might know something's wrong? My mum has her own problems. She's not very well. I've been looking after her. What about telling Miss Evelyn? She's always busy. What about your sister? I wanted to talk to her, but how could I say it?
Sometimes it can be difficult to know what to say.
Can I talk to you?
I've been having a really hard time lately. Please help me. I'm really struggling.
If someone wants to tell you something, how could you be a good listener?
If you're listening to someone, you can lean forward or sit side by side. Make them feel comfortable. Always listen to them. Give them your time and attention.
If you're a friend, you might not know what you could do, but you can help the person find an adult who can help.
Let's see how Jay got on.
Hi, I'm Jack. I don't go to school with Jay, but I go to swimming with Jay. It was me she decided to talk to, and I was worried about her. I told our coach because I thought she knew the best thing to do. I can see now that my problems are too big for me to deal with on my own. Other people have ideas and experience. There are lots of choices. I just had to think it through. Talking to someone didn't magic all the bad things away, but it did start to help me to change things, and it was good not to feel I was on my own. I'm 11 years old, and I realized if I wanted things to get better, I just needed a bit of help.
If your feelings are getting too big to cope with on your own, talking to someone you trust might really help.
That was another good clip that hopefully you'll be able to share with your children. And following on from these conversations about how we can help our children when they're wobbly or when life is just getting a bit tough is this subject of self-care and nurture. And this section is for you as well as for them. So self-care is a phrase that gets bandied around quite a lot, isn't it, these days? But for good reason. It's really important. And we have to realise that it is more than just a bubble bath and a scented candle. It encompasses lots of different areas. And we like to think of it as kind of building blocks for good emotional well-being. So if we start right at the very basics, we want our children to know that they are loved, that they're safe, understood and supported. These are absolute basics. But how do they know this? How are they sure that they're loved, safe, understood and supported? Well, we could do this by verbally telling them, communicating with them and listening to them. So, just simply saying, love you, as they walk out of the door, or take care anything like that is the verbal communication, giving them that message all the time. How else could we do it though? Not verbally. So maybe we could leave them a lunch note in their lunchbox, as well as their lunch in a lunchbox. It's really nice when they open up their sandwiches if there's a little post-it written by somebody, just to help them to say, are you having a nice day? Or hope that maths test went well. A daily love you text could be nice if they've got a phone yet, or something like a chocolate bar on their pillow. All these things go a really long way just to let your children know that you're thinking of them. And home really does need to be the safe place where you can escape from your day, where the duvet is warm, the food is comforting, and someone will give you a hug if you need one. You know how it feels when you've had a rubbish day at work and you freshly made your bed that morning. Our children need that too. In terms of feeling understood, try and remain really calm and non-judgmental when they come to you and tell you things, and really show that you're listening, like that video just showed you. Try not to dismiss their worries, but instead reassure them. The world really is a scary place, and our children are likely to pick up on that at times. That's okay, and we expect them to have worries. But just make sure to show them that you will understand their worries and be there to emotionally pick up some of this when you need to. We need to think about them being active, their basic needs again, and their identity. So being active really does release these chemicals called endorphins, which research has shown can improve our well-being. So we're not talking about necessarily training our young people to run marathons here. We're thinking about walking to school. We're thinking about dancing around the kitchen, playing football, a trip to the park, even having a stretch when you get up from watching a movie can really help. Encourage your children to move their bodies. And this is where you can really role model. Instead of reaching for that glass of wine when you're stressed, reach for the dog, take the dog out, make a dancing TikTok together. And then basic needs again. So with children, we're always thinking, aren't we? Is it good enough? Is their diet good enough? Is their sleep good enough? Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're never expecting to see 5 fruit and vegetables to be eaten every day with a solid 8 to 9 hours of sleep, no screen time, and 2 hours of physical exercise. It's not reality, is it, in most families? We're not looking for perfection. That doesn't exist. But are they at least having some nutrition during the day? Are they at least having some fresh air during the day? And identity, well, this is an area that we don't think about often, maybe so much, but it's very important that it helps us all feel well. Although your children are young, I'm sure you'll all agree that they very much have their own personalities, their own likes, their own dislikes, their wants, and their own opinions. They're discovering their identity now quite strongly, and you can play a big part in supporting this. Just think about your child for a couple of seconds. What do they really like doing? Is there something they're passionate about? It might be quite niche, and that's okay. And this is where the internet can be your friend. Do some research with them. Show them that you really do care about what they're interested in. And then connection. Well, we've spoken a lot, haven't we, about conversations, but also try and think about other ways to connect with your young person. Could you arrange a family games night once a month? Or all start watching a show together with the rule of no phones being allowed while the programme is on. Watching TV or watching YouTube is a great way of starting those what would you do conversations that Chloe spoke about earlier in the session. Family meals eaten together every night are also a great idea. But like we said last week, just sitting in the same room, eating at the same time in front of the TV is still that family time spent together. And we need to think about balance, don't we? You know, a really important area is they're starting to enter more of the academic world. So it might be that they're getting homework now from school, that their clubs are putting some pressure on them. Remember, they're still little children, and love and fun should be the most important aspect of their life. Yes, homework needs to be completed, but balance is really important. So make sure to still try and carve out that really busy, that really quality time with them, even if it's just for a few minutes every night. We know that your evenings are busy. We've got dinner to cook, dishes to be done, clubs to get to, wind down time. The list really does go on. But just try and find 10 minutes to maybe play Lego together when they get home from school, or 10 minutes to sit on the toilet seat while they're in the bath. Really can go a long way. Your children are likely to be too young to really understand what this phrase of self-care is. It doesn't mean that they can't do it. As we saw in the video, what sparks joy often for children are the things we don't think about as being self-care. Singing in the shower, counting. They talked about KFC, didn't they? What your child likes, what helps them to feel good and feel relaxed will be unique to them. And it's also going to change as they grow and develop. What worked 1 month might not work next month. So there's no point tonight in us listing several different self-care ideas for children. You know your children better than anyone, and you'll know what works for them. We do, however, just want to talk for a minute about deep breathing and breathing exercises for children. Think about it. When you breathe slower and deeper, you do feel more calm and more relaxed. And this deep breathing, making you feel calm and relaxed, is really going to help your children in a whole host of ways. If you can do these deep breathing techniques, they activate the part of the nervous system that controls your reactions to stress. And it redirects the mind to a simple task, distracting away from those anxious thoughts. So deep breathing is going to help children to focus and to learn. If deep breathing is something that's new to you and your children, we'd recommend you start with YouTube again. Just type into the search bar, deep breathing for children, and literally hundreds will come up. If you do a quick kind of scout around them all, some of them will include their favourite TV characters as well. If YouTube isn't your thing, try using bubbles, which is a really good basic way to encourage your child to take that deep breath and then a sharp exhale. Deep breathing techniques really do wonders when you're stressed and anxious. And on a final note about self-care, you can do everything that I've just discussed. Please do try and remember to role model all of this for you. If you think about the safety briefing on a plane, they always say to put your own oxygen mask on before your child's, and that analogy is really important. If you're not taking in enough oxygen, you're not going to be any use to anyone. Remember, bringing up children's hard work, and we need all the help we can get. Everything on this slide relates to you too. Be as kind to yourself as you are to your children. There is no such thing as a perfect parent, but hopefully you may have heard something tonight that's going to make it easier. And the fact that you came along really does show how much you're trying to be the parent that you and your children need. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of signposting that you might find helpful tonight. These will be emailed out to you, but do feel free to take a screenshot of this slide. You might not need these services now, you might not ever need these services, but if they're stuck on the fridge door, you never know when you might want them. So the first one up is Childline. So they've got a website and a phone number. Any young person up to the age of 19 can use this service. It's open 24/7. And also on their website, they have the option of talking one-to-one with a counsellor. That's probably a phone number that a lot of your children know. A lot of schools regularly give out the Childline details to children. The NSPCC, so it's where we got our little pants video from, and they have got a wealth of resources and information. For any worries about community issues that may be facing your children, the NSPCC website is generally the place to go. The pants stuff is brilliant on there, and they've got some brilliant resources for parents as well to help you start opening up those conversations with your young people. Parent Talk is a great service from the charity Action for Children. Again, lots of resources to support your child at every stage of their development. And they also have a chat messaging service for that confidential support should you need it. Young Minds, so it says Parent Helpline, and it really is a helpline for all of you, parents, carers and older children. So they do offer advice and support to any parent or carer who's worried about their child's mental health. And they will support you up until your children are 25. So we're talking about young adults as well. They're open office hours, so they're open 9:30 until 4 on a Monday to Friday. And Brooke is a sexual health charity. Again, lots of information on their website for older children and teenagers especially. But there is a section for parents and carers should you have any concerns regarding discussions that we had tonight about sex, relationships, pornography or consent. And we do talk, don't we, a lot about the negatives on the internet. But if you've got a question that needs answering, Google it. Try and stick to known and recognised pages such as those on your screen now, like the NHS or the NSPCC, but always do research and educate yourselves. Quite often I know my children will come home from school talking about something that I'd never heard of. Quick Google makes you sound like you know what you're talking about. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. It's okay not to know everything all of the time. So I think Chloe and I must have talked very quickly tonight because we are nearly coming to the end of the session. It's been great having you all here tonight, and we really hope you can take away something useful. Try and talk to your family about the things we've discussed tonight. And it may not feel like much, but just finding those extra 10 minutes of quality time with your child really can make the world of difference. Remember, you'll never get this age with them again, so try and enjoy some of it. Children are totally amazing. As we keep saying, parenting is so hard too. Look after yourselves. You can't pour from an empty cup. So please take some time out when you can to look after your own well-being and think about that role modelling that you're doing for your children. There is a QR code on the screen now, and we'd really appreciate it if you could scan this code. You should be able to do this using your phone camera. It just takes you to a really quick form and it gives you the opportunity to provide some feedback about tonight's session. We really value your feedback as it helps us to continue to improve these sessions, and it also helps us to secure funding to deliver them again in the future. And also, if you'd like a CPD certificate for tonight, please email Claire, who address, yes, it is on that slide. I was going to say she'll put it in the chat, but it is on the slide there for you. Do follow Chloe and I, the Safety Resilience Consultancy, on Instagram and Facebook so we can keep you up to date with any upcoming events and local services. And the toolkit that accompanies tonight's session will be sent out to you in the next few days by email. A final thank you from us. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. We really appreciate you finding this hour and a half in your busy lives. We'll let you get on with the rest of your evening now, but do take care, and we do hope to see you again at one of our sessions in the future. Thank you. Good night.